guys, welcome to Almost Heaven Homestead. We're so glad to be back. It's been a long time since we've made an actual YouTube video, probably at least over a month, and we wanted to tell you why. Most of you all know that I'm a school teacher, and so when the quarantine happened, my work totally changed. Everything went virtual. So any trainings I was doing was virtual, any teaching I was doing was virtual, and any learning that my kids were doing was virtual. I have two elementary school kids, so everything was virtual all day long, from 8 o'clock till 5 o'clock all day long. And I got totally burnt out with being on the computer, with dealing with technology. I was getting really bad headaches, and so when we finally could slow down with all the virtual school stuff, I took a break, and it was a much needed break, but I'm glad to be back. Another reason why there wasn't a whole lot of content was because of this weather that we had. 2020 has been something else. May, we had a horrible May with rain, and then June came and it was cold. We had more late frost, and so there wasn't really anything to talk about besides we are waiting on some weather to help us out here. And so we are probably at least 3 weeks behind, if not more than that, and you'll notice that in the garden. As I've looked at past videos from last year and photos from the year before, wow, it's a huge difference. So that's another reason why there hasn't been a whole lot of content for you all. But we hope to be back for real this time. And one of the things I did want to share, I didn't want to lose contact with the people that I try to help with gardening. I try to mentor several people during the year, especially beginning gardeners. And so I didn't want to lose that. I wasn't sharing YouTube videos, so I knew how to do something to stay connected and to help people during this time. Quarantine, a lot of people are starting gardens for the first time or the first time in a very long time. And so I did start a Facebook page. You can find us at Almost Heaven Homestead WV. And that is definitely more educational. There's lots of tips and tricks for gardening. We also share what things are going on around here, but it's more for beginning gardeners or if you just always learning. So it's a good place to be. So please like and follow us there if you haven't already. We also are on Instagram. I don't look at that. That's more of my fun page. Look at this beautiful tomato, or look what I cooked for dinner last night from the garden. So it's not as educational as our Facebook one, but you can follow us there. There's different things on each one, but we are happy to be back in the land of YouTube. So let's go check out the garden. We pretty much have the same setup as last year. And as you can see, the peas and beans are climbing the trellis. The peas on this side have really gone downhill since we've had a week of temperatures in the 80s. So I'll be pulling those out pretty soon. Over here on the side, we have our tomatoes, just like last year. And on this side, we have our corn. So let's take a more detailed look. So we've been coming out almost every day to pick a little bowl of peas. We eat them mostly fresh, but I am experimenting this year with not blanching them and freezing them. So we'll see how that goes. We've done that with green beans in the past, so we're going to try that with peas this year. Now, last year my peas didn't amount to anything, so we were tickled that this year they are doing great. As you can see, if this is your first time being in our garden, we use deep mulch in our garden. We use a combination of Ruth Stout methods with rotted hay along with Back to Eden, which is composted wood chips. In the walkways, I have pretty fresh wood chips. I'm not too worried about it being composted. Now, in the rows you see here, like with this melon and all the tomato rows, those are all mulched with rotted hay. And I did say hay, not straw. I prefer hay, and this is why. Hay is filled with life when it's cut. So yes, that means there are seeds because there is life in hay. When you use fresh hay, you have a very good chance of sprouting all kinds of grass in your garden. If you use rotted hay, hay that is moldy and not usable for animals, that is the hay that is starting to already compost on its own, and it's going to bring your soil life. And this is our 3rd year using hay as mulch. And as you see here, my garden is not covered with grass. Now, I do have grass pushing in on the sides where my fence is, but that's just because of the fence and there's not deep mulch there. But I am amazed. It was one of the things I was really nervous about when I went with the deep mulch method. I was afraid year 2, year 3, I would have grass everywhere, and that is not the case. Again, I do not use fresh hay. I use rotted hay. I use wood chips for the walkways. And last year when I was pulling up my tomatoes, because I had blight and different things going on, I pulled everything up, including the roots. When I pulled up the roots of my tomato, it didn't go straight down. The roots went under the wood chip walkways, and it went out this way. So you want your walkways are just as important as what's underneath it. So it was enlightening for me to see that, and it just encouraged me, okay, let's keep on putting wood chips. It's good for the soil. So here's a good example. You see I have hay for our raised rows and our corn, and then there's hay in the walkways. There is some weeds starting to come up. I will put more hay on top of that. I'll just go through and pull them up because it just takes a second to pull them up. And put more hay on top, and that should do me pretty well. But then over here on the side, you'll see I have ground cherries, nasturtiums, and some cucumbers. And there's a tomato back there planted in wood chips, and they're doing fine as well. So for me, it's easier to use the hay. It's easier to move instead of raking back the wood chips. A little trick that I do for no matter what mulch I am planting is I always pull back the chips. I get down into the soil, then I put compost on the top of that soil into where I want to plant my seeds. And so here I have a cucumber coming up, and that's exactly what I did here. I pulled back the mulch, dug down in the soil, and added compost on top. Do not plant in wood chips, okay? There's not much life here. You want to plant in the soil. So we are growing ground cherries for the first time. Things are looking good here. I have never had a ground cherry, so I'm really excited. I was excited to look underneath here and see the husks. Now, what I have read is that they will fall to the ground when they are ripe. If you eat them before that, they are not very tasty. We have a bush tomato back there growing in the corner. And of course, here you guys see our sweet corn. We planted it all at the same time, the same day. But I want you to look. I planted the first, I think it was 6 or 7 rows in the morning. And then I planted the rest of this in the afternoon. You can tell a big difference. My morning corn is a lot taller. So I'm definitely making a note of that. And I will probably plant my corn in the morning from now on because of that. So this whole side is sweet corn. I do have some chamomile and kale on the sides there. I love the combination of chamomile with the corn. I just think it's pretty, and it draws in the pollinators and different things. There's some calendula back there and some asparagus in this row that kind of breaks things up. So on both sides of our trellis this year, we have sugar snap peas, and then we have several different types of beans. I have some red noodle beans, scarlet runner, turkey crawl, and I think Kentucky Wonder pole beans. Those are all growing. They're doing great. Now, my cucumbers over here had a really difficult start. I told you in June it was cold and wet and there was no sun. And I had planted my cucumbers out about June 5th. And for the whole week after, there was nothing, no sun, overcast and rain. And they got some kind of fungal bacteria or something disease they were fighting against. And we have worked hard, and I used Serenade and came out here and, hey baby, came out here and took off the dead leaves and babied it, gave it more compost, and they are growing now. So they're doing good. We haven't gotten any cucumbers off these yet, but if you look closely, we will very soon. This is a Japanese long cucumber. We're also growing Armenian long and market more over here. So that's the main trellis. As soon as you walk in, I have sunflowers on each side. It's interesting again how one is much larger than the other. Over here, starting our next trellis, we have borage on each side. If you guys follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you know I talk about borage a whole lot. I love it for the pollinators. We have some more cucumbers here. Some python beans. I cannot wait to show you those if they ever start taking off. They like very warm temperatures, so they are just now starting to take off. Over here we have Kajari melons that have started to climb. I don't think there's any fruit that has set yet. It's just now starting to flower. We have another cantaloupe here, and then a Beni Kadima watermelon on this side and on the other side over there as well. Have a volunteer tomato that came up. I think it's a Black Beauty, so I may keep it. And then I'm also going to plant some more cucumbers or spaghetti squash in this spot to climb up the trellis. We have bush tomatoes and marigolds on either side. This one's called Sophie's Choice. If you look inside here, it's an early tomato. Lots of tomatoes. I've already set fruit. I've been coming out and shaking them in the mornings and in the evenings. I come out and just make sure they're getting pollinated, and it seems to really be working to make that fruit set. So I do not really prune these because they are bush types and they're not going to get tall at all. Over here in the back of the garden are some more cucumbers. These are my miniature whites and they don't look good at all. I cannot get these greened up. Again, these have been fighting off the same thing the other has, and it's just having a hard time. But this is the one I actually have had 2 or 3 cucumbers off of. There's just really small white cucumbers and they are absolutely delicious. Here we have the Muncher Cucumber, and I actually had one today for lunch. It's coming along pretty good. These do not get very tall, so that's why they're here on a smaller trellis. Some more Munchers, some sad nasturtiums because they do not like this heat. And here we come to the tomato trellis. These are all my semi-determinate or determinate tomatoes on both sides here. Most of these are not indeterminate. Some of them are. I tried to do better this year and group them, and I tried. Once again, I planted them way too close. I did last year, I did this year. I don't know when I'll learn that even though they're this big when I plant them, that they really need to have way more space than this. But I have so many tomato plants and I just want to get them in the ground. It's really difficult. So I have a couple that I'm excited about this year. This one right here is called Long Keeper, and it is one that you take it off the vine before it ripens and you let it ripen in the house, and they actually keep really well, and you can be eating fresh tomatoes in up to like January. They don't taste as good as fresh garden tomatoes, but it's better than the grocery store, I'm sure. Well guys, my battery died on me. Sorry about the abrupt ending. We'll make another video very soon. We definitely will not go another month, so I hope y'all come back.